Well, welcome everybody. Welcome to Center for Independent Future's 2025 webinar series. I'm Samantha Kolke, the Director of Programs and Services, and tonight's webinar is focused on building resilience to thrive. To briefly share a bit about CIF, we are a nonprofit organization based in Evanston and committed to meeting the needs of disabled individuals to achieve independence to lead fulfilling lives. We support individuals' hopes and dreams using our person-centered approach to enhance independence through one-on-one coaching, experiential learning, and shared activities. We are pleased to partner with Kris Burbank, co-author of Embracing Another Normal: Resilience Stories and Strategies for Raising Children with Disabilities. This webinar is aimed at offering you insight, support, and strategies to help you navigate difficult times with confidence. Kris will leave time for questions at the end of the presentation. So if you have a question, please type it into the chat box. We will also make the recording of this event available to attendees after the presentation. Thank you all for being a part of this evening's session. And now let's welcome Kris Burbank.
Thank you, Samantha. This comes the most terrifying part where I try to share my screen, and I hope this is going to work. Yeah, see, now I'm at the end of my presentation. I want to be at the beginning of my presentation.
There it is.
Everybody good? We good? Okay, so I'm really delighted to be here tonight to lead this discussion about thriving as a parent and a caregiver. And after the week I've had, it kind of feels like a heavy lift, actually. Maybe you know that thriving in uncertain times is incredibly challenging. But I also know it's possible, and I know it requires a lot of resilience. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight. It's something that is really important. I'm passionate about it, and I think it applies to parents who are raising kids with disabilities, no matter what age. So I use the term kids quite liberally, even for Mickey's 47-year-old twins. So anyway, our hope for tonight is that this webinar gives you information and some insights and support that you need, regardless of the age of your child or your loved one. And we're also hoping maybe you build some connection with CIF and the community. So thank you again for being here. I just want to say before I start that whenever I speak to parents, I feel like I'm giving myself a little bit of a pep talk. I've been a parent for a long time. Our son is going to be 29 in the spring, and I never feel like I have it all figured out. I still struggle, as I said, every day and every week. So this presentation is actually designed to help all of us. This is a quote that reminds me of why we're here tonight. You're all busy people. You took time to be on Zoom, and I really hope you'll walk away tonight with some ideas about letting your light shine a little bit brighter. That's when we're most resilient, and that's good for us and our kids and our communities and the organizations like CIF that we are supporting. So in the next hour, we're going to talk a lot about how resilience shows up in your life and why we need it and what we already know about it, and maybe some new things that we can try, and really why this is worth our time and our energy. Sam mentioned that I'm a parent. I have 3 children, actually. Henry is our oldest, and Andrew, who's seated in the wheelchair, is our middle son. And then we have a young daughter, Ellen. They're all grown. We've been down the road, and I have met so many families and learned so much from so many families and other people in my life. So several years ago, I trained to become a leadership coach. And I really think it's important and meaningful to take what we do to help develop leaders in organizations and apply that to parents who are leaders in their homes, in their families, in their jobs, and really help them, regardless of their challenges, to lead more fulfilling lives. And I'm really, like I said, very passionate about helping parents. I started a nonprofit that provides free vocational training to kids after high school. And then, as Sam mentioned, I also recently authored this book with Dr. Linda Hoops, who is a resilience expert and has been researching the topic for several decades. And really, we tried to provide, as it says, stories and strategies that show people what it can look like to have a resilient life, how they can build their resilience, and specifically, even if you're the parent of somebody with disabilities, what you can do and why you can have hope for their future and your future. Couple requests. I think Sam already mentioned about putting questions in the chat, but also if you could just turn off your phones. I see that a lot of people have their microphones muted. You don't necessarily need to do that. I'm really hoping that this is an engaging conversation. So I want to invite everybody to just like take a breath and maybe even close your eyes and take another deep breath and think about yourself as a parent. Think about your role as a caregiver. And now you can open your eyes. And I know some of you know what this photo, the feeling this photo shows. We all have these feelings, right? We struggle to find enough time. We agonize over things. We feel like we can't do everything that is expected of us. I think a big one is that we get stuck in our own heads and we worry. Sometimes we can feel disconnected and we can question ourselves. And all of these things require us to be resilient. And I think for me, I feel most of these feelings, if not daily, certainly weekly. And I've gone through lots of times where I questioned my ability. I thought I knew, like, here's what a good parent is. And especially now, in light of what's happening at the federal levels of government, I think we worry. We wake up worrying and we fear, about our kids' futures. And so Linda and I, we define resilience as challenge readiness. So now more than ever, it's really important to build our challenge readiness so that we can navigate what lies ahead. And, the slide is almost irrelevant. Like, we know, why does this matter? It's really simple. We have to manage, overcome, persevere, solve problems. All of those things require us to have energy. And so it's really important for us to learn how to build and protect our energy. And this is the model that and the topic that we explore in the book that Sam mentioned. I want to be really, really clear that for me, I've hated this word resilience, for most of my life. This is a picture of me. Our son was born 4 months early, so it's a picture of him. And I just thought people expected me to be resilient. Like, what are you going to do? Hide under the covers, right? No, you have to be resilient. This is just what you do. You have a job, you have family, maybe you have other kids. But I kind of thought that resilience was something that you did, right? Excuse me. I thought it was something that you are, that it's something you're born, right? Maybe I'm born and I'm more resilient than my brother. Like, it's just a static thing. And what I learned through my work with Linda is that it's really something that you do. It's almost like a verb. And we can actually build our resilience the same way we build our creativity and our endurance. We build it through practice. And the concept here is actually something that we call prosilience, because we think about this as a proactive instead of a reactive thing. And we actually talk about it using the metaphor of muscles. So So the muscles are listed here. I'm not going to read them all to you. When I work with people as a coach, I actually have an assessment that I do with people, because just like with your muscles physically, we are predisposed to rely on some muscles more than others. Um, and I hope in the Q&A we kind of get to talk about this a little bit. I can tell you, for me, I happen to sort of over rely on structure. Structure gives me really a great deal of comfort. And I also am, connection is something that's really important to me. When I am faced with a challenge, structure helps me, connection helps me. Where I'm not so good is being creative, or maybe being willing to experiment with things. And so this metaphor of muscles gives us a way to think about new challenges and how we might approach them, and how we might use different muscles than what we're used to using. So the first thing to know about resilience in muscles and thriving, right, is that when you recognize what matters to you, it's sort of like the starting point. I guess by this I mean defining your values, really understanding what drives you, what you are not willing to sacrifice, what really is almost like your North Star. Figuring all that out, it helps us somehow gain control. So when we're in a situation where we think, oh, I don't know what to do, I've lost control, I have no agency here, if we can think about the role of faith, the role of family, the role of money, the importance of career success, some of these things that maybe seem a little amorphous, we can use them to kind of bring us back to what matters the most. And so I actually have, I think Sam's going to put it in the chat, I have a little exercise that I use with people that helps them really hone in on like 4 or 5 things that they value the most. And they use those when they get into a situation where they're required to make a decision or to assess something. And it helps us to build a life where we're honoring those values and using those as kind of a cornerstone or a North Star. Some people think of it as like your operating system, right, for your life. I've provided some here. I think I mentioned, some of these. One of them that I didn't mention that's not in here for me that's really important is meaningful connection. So for me, if I spread myself too thin and I don't have the ability to stay connected to the people in my life who really give me energy and are good for me, that's a problem. And so, like another one for me is honesty. I have to be in a situation where I know that people can be candid. I know that I can provide honest feedback. Those are the kinds of things that drive me when I make my best decisions. And what happens is when we let our values drive our decisions, it doesn't require as much energy from us, right? You're kind of almost on autopilot, and then you can kind of craft this life that just makes sense. So once you do that, then you can kind of make peace with this version of normal. And I know most of the folks on this call have children in their 30s, and older. I think for many of us, this is what we've done, but we are constantly being given the opportunity to do it again and again and again. Every time we enter like a new phase of life, we often have to sort of reconcile with how our lives are different. And this is what parents tell me. In the book, I interviewed more than 100 families, and I heard this over and over again, right? That what they have is different from what they expected. That it really is. Some of these challenges are unimaginable, and there's so much ambiguity. And, I come back to again where we are now, where, we're hearing about proposed cuts to government programs that really matter to people with disabilities. That just reminding ourselves that, it's going to be okay. We do have control. We can exercise agency, and we can't let the what ifs kind of get in the way. We can become comfortable with those. I love this quote. It's by an author by the name of James Clear, and he says, "You don't need to have a vision; you just need to practice envisioning." And I know in my family, one of the ways that we did that, my son is 29. He does live on his own in a community that offers many of the services that SIF offers. But we never thought he was going to be able to do that. And when his siblings started to think about college and moving away, he talked about moving away, and my husband and I could not envision what that looked like. And he could. He was starting to. He has intellectual disabilities. He has severe cerebral palsy, but we just kind of committed to that, and we started asking questions about, what would he need to be able to do, and what would he have to learn that he didn't know already, and what was it going to cost, and how were we going to make this happen? And I think it's this envisioning that that gets us through some of the tougher times. I think even now, where people are thinking about, oh, well, what happens if I lose these government supports? Okay, well, let's envision what that might look like. Let's figure out what other resources can I bring to bear? What other organizations are out there that may be able to help me? How might I band together with other parents so that the voices are louder? And all of that envisioning helps us feel a little bit more comfortable with where we are. This one is tough. We can't envision if judgment gets in the way, and judgment is judgment of ourselves and also judgment of other people. So resisting judgment is another critical component to thriving and building resilience to thrive. I really love this topic. I could talk about it for a long time. There's something called negativity bias. If I were to ask you all to name 3 things that you're not very good at, you would very quickly be able to name them all. And yet, if I were to ask you to tell me 2 things that you're really good at, you'd have much harder time. Because as humans, we are more inclined to focus on the negative. And there's all kinds, you can Google it, there's all kinds of research. I think that what's really important here is that we have to notice when we do this, especially with ourselves. We have to notice when we're being really hard on ourselves as parents, maybe when we're being hard on our kids, and we have to catch ourselves doing it. And we know we can do this. Sometimes we have to just give ourselves some grace and some leeway. And so I remember I said this was a pep talk, right, for myself as well as everyone. This is just my way of encouraging people here to remember to speak kindly to yourselves, resist the urge to judge yourself, and also to judge other people maybe who are making decisions and doing things that you don't understand. And one of the ways that we can do that is to be curious instead of being judgmental. And I know that most of the folks on this call don't have kids in school, but I have a school example here that I think is really good. If you think back to like when you were in an IEP meeting and everybody's talking about all the things that they're recommending and what they're not recommending. And I remember I used to often say, well, why are you doing it that way? And when you ask a person why, it usually makes them really defensive. So if you think about meetings that you might be having with folks at the state level or anything about your child and the services that maybe your child is entitled to, if we can be curious about how they arrived at those decisions, maybe it's that kind of a conversation. Maybe it's just a friend whose, child is enrolled in a certain program or trying a certain therapy. And we can, instead of just assuming that we know, we can ask them, like, what went into that decision? Can you help me understand that decision? And just get curious about, what they considered and maybe who they talked to. And really try to understand sort of the reasons behind. When I remember to do this, when people I know who told me about how important this is to do it, I try really hard to almost be like fully transparent. And sometimes I'll even say, I think I know what you mean, but I don't want to assume wrong. So can you help me understand why you're recommending that to us? And it's amazing. It really works. So in the spirit of being curious, we can also ask ourselves questions about the energy that it takes to thrive, and really about what gives us energy, what depletes us. Because when we ask these questions, which in all honesty, I didn't really even know to ask until a few years ago. When we understand the answers to these questions, then we can look for ways to address it. Maybe it's relying more on, a partner or, a spouse or a co-parent. Maybe it's working up the nerve to teach our children new things so that they can be more resilient and more challenge ready. Maybe it's accepting that I can't do everything, um, uh, and prioritizing the things that matter most. I don't know about you all, but I talked to a lot of families in the past few weeks, and their inboxes are exploding because everybody is saying, "Oh, you have to talk to your congressional representatives and make sure that they all know how important Medicaid is, for example, or medical research or something." And for many of us, it's like, there aren't enough hours in the day. I want to do that. I don't know, right? So it's figuring out, where am I going to put my focus, and thinking back right to those values and that North Star, and then giving ourselves a break and saying, I can't do it all. I'm gonna do what is most important. And this is true, at least we've found, whether your child's in school, whether you're trying to figure out where your child is going to live as an adult, whether it's, employment that they either don't have or what they have isn't working. Right? How much of this can you take on? Where can we get more support? What can we delegate to other people? All of those things. One of the things Linda says, my co-author, is that energy fuels these resilience muscles. And when it runs low, we don't have anything to draw on. And so we have to learn how to protect and build and replenish our energy. And I mean, I hear people say all the time, right? Got to put your oxygen mask on first. Then they say you can't pour from an empty cup. And I always say, those people mean well, but they just don't get it. And so I think it's incumbent upon us to recognize that we have these additional responsibilities. How can we build a support system and set ourselves up for success? And how can we get different perspectives and different kinds of input to help us do that? I also think that it's just really, if we want to thrive, we have to remind ourselves of what we already know. That we're smart. You all are very smart people, I'm sure. My goodness, the what you all have been through. When I even just looked in that chat about the ages of the children that you care for and that you care about, who are not children, they're adults now. You know that you're not perfect, and you know that there is no crystal ball. But we're put into these roles as caregivers. And I think most of us think, well, I'm a caring person, so I should know how to do this. And I don't think that's true. I think that, we learn as we go, and we know a lot, and we're probably always going to wake up in the middle of the night sometimes worrying about things. But if we can be positive, remember I talked about that negativity bias, if we can try to be positive in the way we treat ourselves, right? We avoid that negative self-talk. We talk to ourselves like we would a friend, right? And we surround ourselves with people who feel good about who help us feel good about ourselves, and we try to be positive. And I don't mean like Pollyanna positive, right? If you go back to the slide about the muscles, positivity is a muscle. And what we mean when we talk about positivity is that we just see opportunity, right? That we don't only see the challenge, but that we try to look at a situation and say, okay, well, maybe there's learning that can come from this. Maybe I won't make that mistake again, right? But that we try to train our brains, and we try to develop these habits so that we can take that outlook. This last reminder really is just about learning, and learning from failure, and learning from all the experiences that we have. I think about it like a basketball game where you watch a basketball player and they rebound, and sometimes they take the ball and they pass it to somebody, sometimes they call a timeout, right? Sometimes they do these things that we can do metaphorically in our lives because they're going to stay in the game. And for many of us, we don't have a deep bench, right? We're that one of those five on that team, and we play all the positions, and we don't get to take a lot of breaks. So I think it's really important for us to remember that not everything has to be perfect, and we can't control everything. And when things go wrong, we can learn from it, right? We can ask ourselves, right? We can avoid blaming people. We can, kind of look at maybe the systems that we use that failed, that can be changed, and we can experiment safely, and we can learn from things. As I mentioned, my son lives in this community. We don't have it all figured out at all, and we are often up against challenges with sort of the system that we've put into place. And so I think I mentioned earlier, I love structure. For me, it it's like a warm blanket. It makes me feel like I got myself together. And so for us, it's often like, okay, well, what's that system look like? How can we adjust that? Because it's not, that one didn't work. So we got to try to do it differently. The the strategies that are here, and I'm kind of trying to wonder, like, what do you guys see? So do you see realizing what makes a difference and what matters to you? And
Yes.
okay, now do you see the next one? Redefining?
We can actually see all 6 of them, Kris.
Oh, and you see
Yep.
no numbers. That's so beautiful. Okay.
No, we actually
So,
see they're numbered. Each box is numbered,
oh,
Kris. It's
yeah, you're not supposed
perfect.
to see that. Yeah. All right. Well, those are the 6 things. And I can share some of those later. But what I want to do is correct this. Hang on. And I want to look at these muscles for a second. And I would love it if anybody wants to come off mute and just sort of talk a little bit about what muscles you like and what work for you, and maybe the ones that you rely on most heavily. Anybody? I think I shared for me connection and structure. Maybe if we're talking about negativity bias, anybody want to talk a little bit about what doesn't work for them? If I have no takers, I'm going to move on. But I just always think it's so interesting.
There is one thing I want to say about that, about positivity. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. I think that's probably one of the biggest struggles, and I would probably say almost everybody in this meeting would agree with me. Being positive at times can feel like a hill, or a mountain that you can't quite get over. And sometimes you are positive for a while when things are calm and things aren't falling apart. But there's always like another mountain that's going to come in your way that you have to climb again. And sometimes you get blindsided by that. So it is challenging to be positive. I don't think that it's possible, at least in my case at this point in my life, to be Pollyanna about anything regarding Gabriel, because it's just been a wild ride from day one. So I kind of appreciate you saying like not being you're not talking about being Pollyanna about it. That's not really possible anyway, most of the time.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to be super negative. I don't feel that way either. It's more of like a acceptance, happiness when things are going well, realistically looking at the fact that it's going to be like a roller coaster ride. Most of the
And
time.
it's going to be really, really hard sometimes.
Yeah. Sometimes it's shockingly hard. Like shockingly hard. Yeah. Yeah. The other thing I want to say,
Barbara.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Ren. Go ahead. Thank you. Go ahead.
Well, when you were talking about connection, I think I'm trying to read this off my phone because I have work up on my computer that I can't shut down right now. I think you're talking about making connections that I don't know if it's in this list because I can't read it very well. Yes, number 3. I think that's my biggest downfall, is that I don't have any friends after all these years that can relate to my situation, what's ongoing in our family with our son, and cannot relate to the journey that I've been on. And that's where I have failed, by not being able to get connected to other people, other family members or caretakers or guardians that go through similar experiences. So that's a major problem for me, is like getting connected. And wasn't intentional. It just seems like it's never really, I don't know, never been able to find a spot that worked completely. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, I hear that from people. And one of the things I hear is that, like, first of all, these are really personal things. So sometimes it's harder to build the connections in the first place, but also like building connections takes time. Right. I have a really wonderful friend, and she pointed out to me that we knew each other before we had children, before we each had a son with severe disabilities.
Wow.
So the connection was already there. I will say that I also hear from people, depending upon the kind of person you are, that even a virtual connection is better than nothing.
Right.
And so, like, I just learned yesterday about an amazing organization. You guys can check it out if you want. It's called We Are Brave Together, and their website is wearebravetogether.com. And I'm sorry for the dads on the call, but it's specifically focused, it's supporting mothers. It was started by a mother in Southern California, and they now have chapters, I guess they call them, all over the country and in other countries. So I think, Ren, you're not alone in the way that you feel and the absence of that connection. It's about, okay, well then maybe what other muscles do I use to try to build that connection?
Yeah.
How can I be creative?
Yeah. And
where might I find?
Part about this,
I'm going to get to you, Barbara. I see you.
Yeah, super quick. The tricky part about this is that the syndrome that our son has is extremely rare. And the only two people that I had connection with, typically the children don't have a long lifespan. So one of those young people is already passed, and the other person is in England. So it's like the hospital connected us with people that we could relate to, but it's not realistic. Like we had to open the umbrella, much bigger. And Gabriel is
and
helping by being
sometimes
in
that's
CIF.
Yeah, I
So
mean, I think that's one of the things that's so great about organizations like CIF, because they are I say multiple disability, but
yeah,
they're not autism specific. They're not specific
right.
just for people with physical disabilities or whatever. And so we learn, because even though my son may not have the same diagnosis as your son, we may still have the same kinds of challenges. The root cause may be different, but we may experience the same thing. Thank you for sharing that. Barbara, I don't want to miss you.
Thank you. I just want to make 3 points. The first is in relation to what Ren just said. I want to ask Kathy or Dick or Samantha to give Ren my contact information if she wants it. I would be really happy to discuss this with you further. I'm one of the founding members, and I know that there's somebody else on this Zoom as well, of the Collective Collaborative Housing Initiative, CCHI, which is a local group, and we very intentionally seek about creating those kinds of relationships to be mutually supportive and find common interests and have fun together. So I'll put that aside. You're most welcome to get in touch with me about that.
Thank you.
Second, in regard to the positivity issue, there is such a thing as toxic positivity, and I think that's what you mean by Pollyanna-ish. But I'd like to relate my own experience. My dad, who's long deceased, was a war refugee whose entire family was killed in World War II under just horrific circumstances. And he couldn't talk about it. And I once asked, but he was a very happy and productive, forward-looking person. And I once asked him, with your background, how can you be this way? How can you be happy? How can you be, joyful in life? And he said, you have to train yourself to think optimistically. And so positivity is not, it's a learned skill. And, I found myself lapsing back into the old negative ways of thinking, and you really do have to look for that, as trite as it might sound, silver lining. So that I said my piece.
It's beautiful. Thank you. Your father was obviously very wise. I also think that training doesn't have to happen, like, it's not just on you, right? There may be people in your life that can help you do that and help you train yourself and help you. We have an expression in coaching where we talk about getting up into the balcony, right? Sometimes when we're down on the dance floor and we're all dancing together, we can't see the choreography. If you get up on the balcony and you change your perspective, you look at things, you may still see that somebody's tripping over their feet, but you also may see, people are dancing together that you didn't even notice, or somebody's off to the side. And so it's about getting yourself in a situation with the help of other people, with, your own abilities to look at that broader perspective. And as your dad said, train yourself to again, see things to be optimistic about. Right? We tend to look at the world like as I'm all positive or I'm all negative. It's always this blend, right? It's always this gray. And we know that better than most people. I had an experience with our son during COVID. All of our kids came home to live, and it was a tight squeeze. And people, we were very lucky because everybody was healthy and we didn't struggle in that way. But it was challenging. And one day my son with disabilities was really down. And I can't remember why, but I suggested that we make a list of all the people that we have gotten to know because he has cerebral palsy. And it was amazing. Now, I still don't like that he has cerebral palsy. He doesn't love that he has cerebral palsy, but he loves most of the people on this list. And it just, again, enabled us to change the way we looked at things. And I just think as a matter of course, we have to do that. And we have, if you're like me and you're inclined to like go down that rabbit hole of fear and worry and, this isn't working. You are smart to find people who can kind of help you pull yourself back out of that. And those people can be anywhere, right? They can be in the CIF community. They can be in a religious, group. They can be in a fitness class, and they can be online. And, I would happily be that to folks. I have a free newsletter. You can go to my website, krisburbank.com, and sign up for it. It just has all kinds of resources. I just mentioned this We Are Brave Together. I'm going to be doing a spotlight on them in the coming weeks. I have, as I said, the freebie, the download that you can go and avail yourself to, and all kinds of other stuff. For people who are really interested in diving into things. And I think this group, because of the age of your children, is not necessarily for whom this is targeted, but what we did with the book was to interview all these families, and I had all these video interviews. And so we turned it into a digital, almost like a resource hub for people. These are the 6 challenges that we came up with based on data from families. Interestingly, families with disability, the vast majority, these were the 6 that percolated to the top, and the vast majority of parents reported experiencing at least 3, and most often 5 of these 6 challenges. So I also have a coupon for you guys if you want to do that. But really, I want to encourage everybody to reach out if you have questions, if I can connect you with other people and other resources. And I would love to be able to just talk, openly about anything else that is of significance to people. I'm going to stop sharing. As I said, I'm so glad to be here. I think that now more than ever in these very turbulent times, it's really important for people to think about challenge readiness and think about building muscles, and not think I'm born at a certain level. We all can help each other, and we all can expand and build our resilience.
Thank you so much, Kris. I heard.
Thank you.
I was lucky enough to be in a town hall last year and hear you talk a little bit about this, and being able to get the full scope and presentation of this was just fantastic. Are there any questions that people have? I know we've been monitoring the chat, but now that we're at the end. Okay. I did include the information for downloading the values exercise for parents in the chat, as well as the Kris's website where you can learn more, subscribe to the newsletter, connect with Kris. So that's there.
Put a plug in for the book too, which you can always also find on the website.
Thank you, Dick.
Kris, you're so
well, it's interesting. I've known the Malones for a very long time. It's really, really important to have people in your life who can just be there for you. And Ren, I would echo what Barbara said. If you want to reach out to me afterwards and we can kind of brainstorm how to help you build that connection, I would be happy to do it. This job is not for the faint of heart. And, you know, we are all stronger when we can support each other.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well,
Can I say one other
Kris.
thing?
Yeah,
I have one
please.
other thing to say. One of the basic tenets of building resilience, and like even in coaching, one of the things I ask a person when we're working together is, who can help you do that? Okay, you've identified this thing you want to do, this behavior you want to change, or this thing you want to try. Who can help you do that? And I was looking at the list of webinars that you all are sponsoring. SIF can help you do that. There are these amazing webinars, and I know you all are an amazing resource. So I just want to encourage people. These are the resources that exist, and take full advantage of them. You never know what can come of it.
You know, Kris, we're now at the very end, and you've been sharing so many wonderful nuggets in the comments and things, and I've been listening and not wanting to make this observation, but you talked about being a person that likes structure. And I work through a lot of challenges by structuring and setting goals and doing lists and things. But one of the things that I have found that's been key to my resilience is sometimes just giving it up to faith and knowing that you can do all that you can, and it doesn't guarantee that you'll have the outcome that you want, that things will play out exactly the way you've tried to structure it, and being courageous enough to then let go. And I have found that by doing that, almost always I'm pleasantly surprised. Something comes out from left field that I hadn't even anticipated by just backing off a little bit. And so that's kind of been my journey toward trying to hold on to resiliency during hard times.
Well, thank you for sharing that. That's, well, it's inspiring, but I also love hearing it because, like, one of the chapters in the book is all about letting go. And, like for me, it was really hard to let go. I had to sort of, okay, well, what kind of safety net can we have? So you saw a picture, my son uses a motorized wheelchair. So my big thing was fire. I was like so afraid of fire. I wouldn't leave him alone because what if there's gonna be a fire? But you look at like the statistics on fire, I could take a walk with the dog. We were gonna be okay. So it was about, okay, what's the plan for if there's a fire? Oh, okay. Now I'm gonna put it up to faith. Now we're gonna be able to, see what happens. And I think you're right. It's amazing how surprised we can be. So yeah, I really appreciate that. Thank you for sharing. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Kris, for this empowering and refreshing webinar. That perspective shift you offer through this lens of resilience is deeply impactful as the disability world and advocates navigate these uncertain times as well as uncertain times throughout. This presentation is the first of 5 educational Zoom webinars we're hosting from now through May. So next month, you can join us on Tuesday, March 18th from 6 to 7 for an informational hour with Miranda Martinecki. She is the program coordinator for housing navigation with CAU, or Community Alternatives Unlimited, who will be sharing invaluable information about this relatively new program and how this may support your family and loved one. And we encourage you to visit our website to register for those upcoming webinars. And we will also share this information through email blasts. So thank you again for joining us. Thank you so much, Kris, for your time and all of the work that you've done and how you are supporting all of us here, as well as families in navigating this world together. And I hope you all have a good rest of your evening.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Take care.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.